Marcus Webb had survived 3 years on the most isolated space station in the known galaxy, a busted food replicator, two roommates who quit the program, and one very aggressive pet crab named Gerald. But nothing could have prepared him for the moment a 5'9", pale-skinned, violet-eyed alien woman walked through his front door, dropped one bag on the floor, looked him dead in his very human eyes and said, "I have foreseen it. You are my future, mate." Marcus said, "I just wanted someone to split the utilities. Let's back it up about 48 hours because this story, like all the best love stories, starts with a man, a spreadsheet, and a profound sense of loneliness." Marcus Webb, 32 years old, originally from Savannah, Georgia, was a Level 3 atmospheric technician stationed aboard Marcus Prime, a deep space outpost positioned on the far edge of the Valorian system. Now, Marcus Prime wasn't exactly a glamorous posting. No beaches, no bars, no brunch spots. Just 17 kilometers of pressurized corridor, the distant glow of a dying star, and roughly 400 beings of various biological configurations who had all, voluntarily or otherwise, decided that deep space was a perfectly reasonable place to live. Marcus had come here for the paycheck. The station offered triple hazard pay. He'd done the math 4 years out here, and he could go back to Earth, buy a small house, maybe adopt a dog. That was the plan. What was not part of the plan was his second roommate, Denny, getting transferred to Sector 9 after an incident involving a smuggled lizard and a fire suppression system, which is a whole other story. Leaving Marcus alone in a two-bedroom quarters unit with rent he absolutely could not cover solo. So he did what any reasonable man in space would do. He filed a shared habitation request Form 7 Gamma. It's exactly as romantic as it sounds. The shared habitation office on Marcus Prime was managed by a four-armed bureaucrat named Grenix, who processed roommate requests with the enthusiasm of a man being slowly deflated. Marcus slid his paperwork across the desk. Actual paper, because Grenix didn't trust digital forms, which, honestly, respect and waited. Human preferences, Grenix asked without looking up. Quiet. Respectful of personal space. Doesn't eat my food. Not anything that produces spores. I had a situation. Grenix made a note. Possibly. It was hard to tell. His face didn't move much. "We have one available match," Grenix said finally. "Recent transfer. Top-tier hygiene rating. Excellent references. Comes from a culture with a strong tradition of communal living and long-term domestic bonding." Marcus blinked. "That last part sounds a little." "Wonderful," Grenix said, stamping the form with unnecessary force. "Move-in date tomorrow. 1400 hours. Welcome to cohabitation." Marcus walked back to his quarters feeling pretty good about this. Clean. Quiet. References. That was basically a dream roommate. He had absolutely no idea. Because what Grenix had not mentioned, and this is the kind of detail that feels, in retrospect, extremely relevant, was that Marcus's new roommate was a Valorian. And Valorians don't just share space. They share destinies. 1,400 hours arrived like it always does, exactly on time and with no warning whatsoever. Marcus had cleaned. He'd actually cleaned. He rearranged the throw pillow on the couch. Yes, singular, one throw pillow. And he'd hidden Gerald the crab in the bathroom because Gerald had a habit of snapping at newcomers with a hostility that felt deeply personal. The door chimed. Marcus straightened up, took a breath, opened the door. And there she was. She was tall. Her skin was the color of moonstone, pale and faintly luminescent, like she'd absorbed a little bit of starlight and just kept it. Her hair was silver white, pulled back with what appeared to be a live, decorative tendril creature that pulsed gently like it was breathing. Her eyes, and this is the part Marcus would describe later with the specific vocabulary of a man who had been hit by something invisible, her eyes were purple. Not purple like a crayon. Purple like the space between galaxies. Deep and shifting and completely unreadable. She was carrying exactly one bag. She looked at Marcus the way someone looks at a painting they've seen in a dream. "You are Marcus Webb," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yeah, I am Silvara of the Third Luminant House of El." She stepped inside without being invited, not rudely, just with the confidence of someone who had already decided this was her home. She set her bag down. She looked around the apartment slowly, like she was inspecting a prophecy. Then she looked back at him. "I have foreseen it," she said. "You are my future, mate." Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it, then opened it again. "Ah, I'm sorry, the what now?" Now here's where we need to take a small detour. Into Valorian culture, because context, as they say, is everything. Valorians are an ancient species, about 60,000 years older than humanity, which they are extremely polite about and only mention constantly. They evolved on a planet with 2 moons and a phenomenon called the lumitide, a biannual surge of electromagnetic energy that, according to Valorian spiritual tradition, awakens what they call the resonance, an internal sense that guides them toward their life partner. For most Valorians, the resonance is a gentle nudge, a feeling, a pull towards someone across a crowded room. For Silvara, apparently it had shown her an extremely detailed vision that included Marcus Webb specifically, his face, his quarters number, and mortifyingly, his habit of eating cereal directly from the box at 2 a.m. I have not yet told anyone that detail, she added serenely. It will remain between us. Marcus pointed at the box of Cosmic Crunch on the counter. She nodded once, diplomatically. He sat down on the couch. Okay, he said. Okay, so, you think we're, what? Destined? Like soulmates. The resonance does not think, she said, sitting across from him with the posture of someone who had never slouched in their life. It knows. Marcus looked at this person, this luminous, purple-eyed, silver-haired stranger who had walked into his apartment 12 minutes ago, and made a decision. He was going to be very, very normal about this. The thing about Marcus Webb was that he was, fundamentally, a practical man. He believed in protocols, procedures, labeled containers in the refrigeration unit. So he did what any practical man would do when confronted with an alien woman claiming cosmic romantic destiny. He made a roommate agreement. He actually printed it out. 4 pages. Laminated. Silvara read it with the focused attention of a scholar examining an ancient text. This document states, she said slowly, that I am not to, quote, declare any further prophecies before 9 a.m. or after 10 p.m. That's the quiet hours rule. You have categorized prophetic foresight as a noise violation. It's more about emotional noise. And this clause here. Romantic proclamations require 24 hours advance notice and must be submitted in writing. I feel that's reasonable. She looked up at him. Those purple eyes. Unblinking. You are very unusual, Marcus Webb. I've been told. She signed it. All 4 pages. In a script that glittered faintly when it dried. Marcus told himself this was going fine. This was going totally fine. He went to the bathroom and found Gerald the crab sitting on Silvara's toiletry bag. Silvara appeared in the doorway behind him. She looked at Gerald. Gerald looked at her. And Marcus witnessed this with his own 2 human eyes. Gerald did not assent. Gerald made a small, soft clicking sound and gently rested one claw on her bag like he was patting it. I like your creature, Silvara said. He hates everyone, Marcus whispered. She smiled for the first time. It was like watching a star decide to be warm. The first week was an education. Marcus learned that Valorians sleep for only 3 hours but spend 2 of those hours humming softly. Not a song, just a frequency, like being near a tuning fork that had found something beautiful to resonate with. He also learned that Silvara found human food fascinating in the way scientists find bacteria fascinating, with detached wonder and mild horror. This is a sandwich, he told her one morning. It is bread concealing other bread, she said. It's a club sandwich. You have named it like it belongs to an organization. It does, sort of. Does the sandwich have ranks? Is there a leader sandwich? Marcus stared at her. Are you messing with me right now? She took a bite, chewed carefully. Her expression shifted through several emotions before settling on something that looked, suspiciously, like delight. It is acceptable, she said. This, Marcus would come to learn, was the highest compliment Silvara of the Third Luminate House gave to anything she hadn't yet admitted she loved. He started making her a sandwich every morning. He told himself it was just courtesy. Roommate stuff. Practical. He started cutting them diagonally because she'd mentioned once, offhandedly, that diagonals were the Valorian symbol for new beginnings. He didn't examine that decision very closely. Meanwhile, Silvara was observing him with the quiet intensity of a naturalist studying a newly discovered species and writing notes in her journal in that glittering script. Marcus absolutely did not try to read them. He tried to read them once. She had somehow already written he will attempt to read this journal on the page he turned to. The resonance, apparently, was very thorough. Word traveled fast on Marcus Prime because 400 people in a metal tube have nothing to do but talk. By day 3, Marcus's colleague and self-appointed life coach, a stocky Martian-born engineer named Bex, had already formed strong opinions. She said you're her soulmate? Bex said, dropping her lunch tray with a clatter. On day one, technically in the first 4 minutes, Marcus, Bex grabbed his arm. That's either the most terrifying thing I've ever heard or the most romantic. I genuinely cannot tell which. Me neither, Marcus said honestly. What you gonna do? I made a laminated agreement. Bex stared at him for a very long time. You, she said, are going to die alone inside a love story. That is your specific tragedy. Marcus did not find this as funny as Bex seemed to. The other station residents were equally fascinated. Greenox, it turned out, had processed 17 share dehabitation requests involving Valorians over the past decade, and he confirmed with clinical detachment that yes, when a Valorian says mate, they mean it cosmically and completely, and also that the residents had a documented accuracy rate that made Marcus feel simultaneously chosen and ambushed. 94%, Greenox said, stamping something. The other 6% are generally clerical errors. Which am I? Greenox looked at him. That is not for me to determine, Mr. Webb. Great. Fantastic. Very helpful. It was on day 11 that things shifted in a way Marcus could not file a form about. The station's external observation deck, a wide, transparent dome that jutted into open space like a snow globe that had given up on snow, had a waiting list 3 weeks long. But Silvara, somehow, had acquired 2 passes for the night of the Lumitide. When the electromagnetic pulse from the dual moons of Vel was visible even from this distance as a shimmer in the space dust. A curtain of gold and rose light that moved like slow breathing. She'd asked him, the night before, with the careful formality of someone consulting the laminated agreement. I would like to observe the Lumitide from the dome. The roommate agreement does not prohibit shared recreational activities. I am providing 26 hours advance notice. I am not making a proclamation. I'm asking if you would like to come. Marcus had said yes before she finished the sentence. He told himself it was because the Lumitide only came twice a year and he'd never seen it. Which was true. But also, he'd started noticing things. The way she made the space feel less empty. The way she tilted her head when she was processing something unfamiliar, a quick, bird-like curiosity. The way she talked about her home planet with a distance in her voice that he recognized because he felt it too. Sometimes looking at photos of Savannah. Green and heavy and full of things that grew without being asked. They stood side by side in the dome. The Lumitide unfurled across the dark like someone had painted the void in warm light. It's... Marcus started. Yes, she said. She didn't need him to finish. They were quiet for a while. The good kind of quiet. The kind that doesn't need filling. Do you actually believe it? He asked eventually. The resonance. The destiny thing. She was quiet for a moment. I believe I traveled 40 million kilometers on a routine transfer request that, upon review, should have been assigned to someone else. The paperwork was misfiled. Greenox processed it in the wrong order. She paused. I believe in the misfiled paperwork. Marcus turned to look at her. That's the least mystical thing anyone's ever said to me about destiny. I thought you would prefer it that way. He laughed. For real, from somewhere genuine. She watched him laugh with those galaxy-colored eyes, and she looked like someone who had found the thing they were looking for Whitho. T being entirely sure they were allowed to be glad about it yet. Marcus understood that feeling completely. Neither of them mentioned almost. But it hung there in the light of the Lumitide like something that had already decided to happen. And then, because the universe has a mean sense of timing, 2 things happened simultaneously. First, Marcus got the news he'd been waiting 3 years for. A position had opened in the Atmospheric Systems Division on Earth Station 1, the big one, the prestigious one, the one with a salary that meant the house in Savannah wasn't a fantasy anymore. He had 2 weeks to accept or decline. Second, Silvara received a communication from the 3rd Luminant House informing her that her family had arranged for her to return to Vel for the pairing season, a biannual event where unmated Valorians of appropriate age met potential partners selected by their house. Attendance was technically optional. Culturally, it was on not. She told him over dinner. He told her over the same dinner. It was the kind of accidental synchronicity that would have been funny if it hadn't hit like a small, precise asteroid. You're leaving, she said. Maybe. I haven't decided. Are you leaving? I am expected. That's not the same as leaving. She looked at him. No, it is not. Gerald the crab, sensing tension, retreated under the couch with unusual diplomacy. Marcus Webb had, up until this moment, successfully avoided examining any of his feelings about Silvara by keeping them in a very secure mental filing cabinet labeled, "Do not open, roommate situation." That cabinet, he was discovering, had a terrible locking mechanism. What followed was the kind of argument that only happens between two people who care too much and haven't said it yet. You knew you were leaving when you arrived, Silvara said. Not accusatory, just precise. I didn't know anything when I arrived, Silvara. You showed up and told me we were cosmically bonded. I had to process that while also learning that you hum at 3 a.m. and that Gerald likes you more than he likes me. You are deflecting with humor. I do that when I'm scared. Silence. He hadn't meant to say that last part. She looked at him steadily. Her voice, when it came, was quieter. What are you afraid of, Marcus? He sat down, rubbed his face, looked at the window and the stars beyond it. That you're right, he said. About all of it. And that it doesn't matter, because you go to Vel for your pairing season and meet someone from a luminant house who glows in the right frequency or whatever, and I'll go back to Earth and buy a house and get a dog, and it'll be a perfectly good life, and I'll spend the whole time wondering what would have happened if I just... He trailed off. Said something, she finished. Yeah. She sat down across from him. She folded her hands in her lap with the deliberateness of someone making a conscious choice to be still. I did not file for this transfer, she said. I did not choose this outpost. I did not select you from a catalog of potential mates. The resonance is not a command. It is a recognition. I looked at you, this strange, laminate-happy, sandwich diagonal cutting, serial in the dark human man, and something in me said, oh, it's you. She paused. I cannot make you feel that. I would not want to. But I am telling you that I felt it. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Gerald emerged from under the couch and snapped, gently, at Marcus's shoelace, as if to say something, you idiot. I cut the sandwiches diagonal on purpose, Marcus said. Silvara blinked. I know. I've known what new beginnings means in Valorian since week 2. I looked it up. Her lips parted. The faintest, most beautiful smile. Here is where we have to pause and appreciate the extraordinary position Marcus Webb was now in. He was a man from Savannah, Georgia, who had come to the far edge of the known galaxy for a paycheck and was now sitting across from a woman from an ancient star civilization who had looked at him specifically, a man who ate cereal from the box at 2 a.m. and seen something worth crossing 40 million kilometers for. The Earth job was real. The salary was real. The house was real. But so was this. And Marcus had spent 3 years in space learning something quietly important. Distance changes your sense of what's worth going back to versus what's worth staying for. He picked up his comm unit, pulled up the job offer, looked at it for a long moment. Then he opened a different screen. Marcus Prime internal transfer requests. Available positions. He started scrolling. Silvara watched him. What are you doing? She asked. There's a level 4 position opening on the Vel orbital station next quarter. Atmospheric systems. Pays well. And before you say anything, he looked up. I'm not doing this because of a prophecy. I'm doing this because I want to. That's the deal, Silvara. I'm a practical man. I need it to be a choice. She stared at him. And the Earth position? She asked carefully. I'll decline it. Silvara stood up. She crossed the room. She stood directly in front of him with those deep space eyes and her silver hair and the little tendril creature in it pulsing a warm, excited gold. Marcus Webb, she said. Yeah. The roommate agreement does not prohibit. I know what it says, Silvara. I am providing verbal advance notice. Okay. I'm going to. I know. She kissed him. And Marcus Webb, atmospheric technician level 3, a man who had come to space for the money, who had filed a Form 7 Gamma, who had laminated a roommate agreement, kissed her back like he'd been waiting 3 years longer than he thought. Bex found out within 6 hours. This was mathematically faster than the speed of sound, which Marcus pointed out and which Bex dismissed completely. You kissed her. Bex slammed both palms on the cafeteria table. 3 trays rattled. A small blue lizard-like creature at the next table glanced over with mild interest. Can you lower your... The laminated agreement guy kissed his cosmic soulmate. Bex, I need a moment. You're having a moment. I'm having several. Grenix, passing by with a stack of forms, paused. Looked at Marcus. Back at Bex. Valorian roommate, he asked Marcus. Yeah. Grenix nodded with the serenity of a man who had seen this 17 times before. Congratulations, he said and walked on. Bex pointed after him. See? Even Grenix saw this coming. In my defense, Marcus said, I was very normal about it for almost 2 weeks. Marcus. Buddy. My God. She walked in the door and said you were soulmates. and you made her sign a 4-page laminated document. It had good clauses. You are the most unromantic romantic I have ever met, and somehow it worked out for you, and I am genuinely. She pressed her hands to her face. I'm genuinely so happy and so annoyed at the same time. These feelings should not coexist. Welcome to my last 2 weeks, Marcus said. Silvara did return to Vale for the pairing season. She went, as she'd said, because she was expected. But she went with the quiet, unshakable calm of someone who already knows what they're coming back to. She was gone for 18 days. Marcus did not handle this with the stoic practicality he'd planned. He reorganized the kitchen twice. He taught Gerald 3 new commands, 2 of which Gerald refused. He video called his mother in Savannah, who said within 30 seconds of seeing his face, "Who is she?" And when Marcus started to explain, she interrupted him with, "Is she good to you?" And when he said yes, she said, "Then stop making it complicated, baby, and just love her," with the directness of a woman who had 0 patience for drama and infinite patience for her son. He took that call standing in the kitchen at 2 a.m. with a box of Cosmic Crunch under his arm. He thought about that a lot. Silvara returned on a Tuesday. The transport docked at 1,700 hours. Marcus was on the platform. He told himself he wasn't going to be the person who shows up on the platform. He was on the platform. She came through the arrival gate with her 1 bag and her silver hair loose, and the tendril creature flashing a rapid, happy sequence of colors like a tiny living firework. She saw him. He lifted a hand. Very casual. Very normal. She walked up to him and said very precisely, "I'm providing verbal advance notice. I am about to make a proclamation. It is 1,702 hours. This is within the agreed parameters." He laughed. "Go ahead. I missed you," she said. "Specifically. Not in a resonance way." And I walked through the pairing season and looked at each person they showed me and thought about how none of them cut sandwiches diagonally, and thought about how none of them named a crab Gerald, and thought about. He kissed her in the arrival hall of Marcus Prime with 400 mixed species witnesses and Greenwich somewhere in the background stamping forms with mild approval. The tendril creature burst into full gold. 3 months later, Marcus Webb accepted a Level 4 atmospheric systems post on the Vale orbital station. The transfer paperwork was, naturally, handled by Greenwich, who stamped it without comment, but who did, and Marcus noticed this, stamp it slightly less forcefully than usual, which, from Greenwich, was essentially a standing ovation. The Vale orbital was bigger than Marcus Prime, cleaner, warmer in the color temperature of its artificial lighting. It smelled faintly of something that Marcus eventually identified as the Valorian equivalent of rain, a mineral, clean, ancient smell that reminded him of thunderstorms back home, and which Silvara said reminded her of childhood. They got a quarters unit with 2 bedrooms. Marcus printed a new roommate agreement. 1 page this time. He slid it across the table. Silvara read it. The single rule it contained. No more agreements. She looked up at him with those impossible eyes. The tendril creature glowed warmly. "This is the last document," she asked. "Last document," he confirmed. She picked up the pen, signed it in glittering script. He took it, and then, with great ceremony, he did not laminate it. He folded it up and put it in his pocket. Silvara raised an eyebrow. "Keeping it," he said simply. She smiled. That star-deciding to be warm smile. Gerald clicked contentedly from his travel habitat in the corner. Well, Marcus and Silvara lived on the Vale orbital for another 2 years. Marcus got promoted to Level 5. He became something of a legend, the human who filed Form 7 Gamma and ended up bonded to a Valorian by administrative accident, which the Third Luminant House found both baffling and, eventually, deeply charming. He met her family. Her mother spent the first dinner studying him with unnerving focus, and then announced he had good atmospheric energy, which, given his job, Marcus chose to take as a compliment. Silvara visited Savannah. She stood in Marcus's mother's backyard in late July heat, which, relative to the Valorian homeworld, was actually cooler, and watched lightning bugs blink in the humid dark and said, very softly, "Oh," the same way Marcus had once looked at the Lumitide, like discovering a whole new kind of beautiful. And Gerald a crab? Gerald lived another 4 years, which is extremely good for a crab, and which Marcus's mother attributed directly to the healing energies of interspecies love, and which Marcus's mother told everyone she met forever. They did eventually formalize the bond, in a Valorian ceremony that involved actual starlight and a human ceremony that involved Marcus's cousin playing bag guitar and Bex crying so hard she had to step outside. Both were perfect. And Marcus Webb, the spreadsheet man, the form filer, the laminator of agreements, stood in the light of 2 moons on the night of the Lumitide, a year after all of this began, with his hand in Silvara's, and thought, I asked for a roommate. What I got was a universe that had better ideas. And out there, somewhere in the deep dark between the stars, the resonance hummed. Not a command. Not a prophecy. Just a quiet, glowing, ancient yes. If you made it all the way out here to the edge of the galaxy with Marcus and Silvara, thank you. Genuinely. You have excellent taste in love stories and slightly questionable taste in roommate applications. If this story found you today, maybe that's your resonance talking. Or maybe you just like space. Either way, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next story from Beyond the Stars. And Marcus, if you're listening, cut the sandwiches diagonally. Always.